In the heart of West Africa, people drive on roads which don't deserve to be called that. They're dusty dirt tracks which don't appear on any maps. They can only be traveled on with great effort and during a few months of the year. Risk is a passenger on every trip. In Mali's bushland, in the Savannah of this West African country, there are few fully developed roads. The dirt tracks seem to make erratic lines on the parched plains. Most people here don't own a car. Minibuses, pickups and lorries commute between the villages. On market days, there is intense activity. Many traders and customers are on the road. Since the dirt tracks are unpredictable and the vehicles are in bad shape, each trip becomes an adventure. In the past few years, Abdoulaye Dombele has been driving for a transport entrepreneur. He's a focused driver because no one is immune to unwanted surprises on the dusty dirt tracks. Abdoulaye knows many of his passengers. In order to keep them happy, he talks to them. He wants them to feel that they are in safe hands.
Accidents happen all the time here. There are so many bends in our roads. God has blessed me with luck. Since I've been working, I've not had an accident yet, but cars keep tipping over. The roads are in bad condition. Not a month goes by when you don't hear of a car having tipped over. The drivers who are not from here, they just go too fast.
Abdoulaye's passengers are traders and merchants. They travel from market to sell their goods. They only take the minibus in the dry periods. When the rains come, they travel in boats. Cars would get bogged down in the mud and water.
We are done for when the water disappears between Jafarabe and Tenenku. Then there are a lot of potholes and the dust is awful. Now it's just torture. But that's the way it is. Whatever work you do, you can't run away from it. Only when God releases you, you can get away from it.
For about 7 months, between October and May, it's dry. Then it's high season for transports over land. As soon as the first rain comes, the region turns into one huge sheet of water. In central Mali, in the Massina region, the river Niger, one of the mightiest rivers in the world, floods large areas. The dirt tracks disappear. Only when the water retreats can the villages be reached by vehicle again. What is left is sand and dust. The dry, hot northeast wind from the Sahara, the Harmattan, brings even more dust. In March and April, the temperature soars to over 50 degrees. It's misty for weeks on end. Vehicles have trouble picking their way between broken earth and washed-out forts. It takes time for new dirt tracks to be created. The heat makes people short-tempered. An argument between the carriers who are loading up a truck. What's it about? Probably only the one who is most upset knows for sure. His co-workers hope that the racket won't last long. They prefer to preserve their strength. The work is strenuous. Countless bags of onions, dried fish, millet, spices and mangoes need to be loaded onto the lorries. They often weigh 30, 40 or more kilos. There is hardly anything that isn't taken on, be it an individual piece or a mass product. It's all a question of price, space and goodwill. To ensure that the lorries don't tip over, the heavy stuff goes at the bottom, into the middle if possible. Siku Ndaye knows about the importance of correct loading. He and his colleague, Diadje Maiga, have been driving their lorry through the savannah half their lives. Although they are not blood-related, and each is his own boss, they feel like brothers. Togetherness in the bush and the challenges of the job have forged a bond over the years.
The routes are dangerous. At first, it seems easy to drive between the bushes and trees. But if you go fast, accidents are quick to happen, especially around bends. Traffic has increased. There are more mopeds, more cars, and more donkey carts driven by the villagers. If you think, I know the way, there are no potholes, and you drive fast, you can easily bump into a cart driver or a moped, or you crash into another car.
Next up after the goods are the animals. They travel together with their owners. To make sure nothing is lost during the trip, the load is secured with ropes, cords and straps. Diadje and Siku are responsible for the transport. They have to make good for any loss or damage. The passengers are the last to come on board. How they get up there is up to them. They take their goods on board too, so they can always keep an eye on them. It takes time for everyone to find their place. The people wait in the heat for the departure. There are always arguments about who sits where. On top of the driver's cab is the most comfortable place.
Hey, tell him to fix the water canister. The water canister. Take it off there and fix it here.
Whenever possible, Diadje and Siku drive in a convoy. That way, the drivers can help each other out in the event of an accident or breakdown. Some latecomers arrive who also want to travel. The drivers wait for them. They depend on every single customer. As long as Diadje and Siku don't arrive too late at the next station, no one will complain. For now, everyone is glad that the trucks are finally moving. Even if there are initial difficulties. The passengers are stoic about the fact that the trucks drive too closely to the trees and they get hit by branches. If they were going any faster, this could cause serious injuries. The trucks struggle through the savannah like swaying ships. The land is dusty and dry. Strangers would get lost on these trails, as there are no signposts showing which dirt track leads where and when. Siku knows the region like the back of his hand. Even so, he has to concentrate.
If you have a full load, for example, and there are people sitting on top of that, You have to be careful how you drive because they could be sleepy. If they doze off, don't hold on and the car tips to one side, they could fall off. And they could also fall off in bends if you go too fast.
The passengers who sit on the edge have to make sure the hard spikes of the thorn bushes don't hit them in the face. Their eyes are smarting, and their strength is waning. The heat and the dust make you tired. But the people watch out for each other. After all, they're all not in the same boat, but on the same truck.
If you get on and don't hold on properly, you fall off. That's why we sit close together. You have to hold on to someone else who will hold on to another person. If there are too many people, that's no good. Why did I get on the truck? Because the driver is careful. Also, because the road is not good. The driver is responsible for me, and he's driving slowly.
Abdoulaye Dembélé has stopped his minibus for a break in Dia, a small village along the dirt track. Some of the passengers have got off, and new ones get on to get to the market. It's up to the drivers to make sure they have enough customers. There are a lot of minibuses competing, and word gets around which car is more comfortable and faster, and which vehicle always breaks down. Careful and responsible driving also matters, but above all, people who use minibuses as a means of transport are in a hurry. It's important for Abdoulaye to arrive safely. The paths themselves are packing a punch, and he doesn't want to take additional risks by driving carelessly.
It is normal on the bad paths that there are no petrol stations along the way, and they take long. You need the entire day just for one way. You can't go back and forth twice. You can only drive one way in one day because the way is so difficult.
Through the cracks, dust gets into the minibus. It gets into everything, including the passengers' pores. There is more dust than air to breathe. The temperature rises to almost 60 degrees. Your skin dries out. There's no escape. Grit your teeth and hold on.
People have to put up with great hardship, all because of the bad roads. The drivers also have problems. It's slippery everywhere because they refuse to upgrade the roads. If the roads were good, many mishaps wouldn't happen. But this is part of our work as traders. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be traveling here.
In places where hardly anyone travels, and vehicles rarely break the Savannah's silence with their noise, there is hustle and bustle on market days. It's rush hour on Mali's dirt tracks. The roads are full of people and their animals. Since the dirt tracks are not made for a lot of vehicles, dicey situations occur again and again.
Did you see, when he went by us so closely, we bent forwards to protect ourselves from the dust. That's why we fear the car. Horse and carts are better. We don't like cars. They get up to a lot of nonsense. We drive very slowly. I'm afraid of cars.
Since minibuses and trucks started driving on the dirt tracks along with the donkey and horse carts, there have been more accidents. The different speeds don't go together well. The horses are spooked because they're not used to having cars speed past them like lightning. They are used to a different pace. Life in the savannah has a more leisurely rhythm than life in the city. For these people, a horse and cart is still the most affordable means of transport. It doesn't need a petrol station or garage. Minibuses are a threat to this infrastructure.
There is competition between us, absolutely. They don't want us to transport people. If everyone can make some money, that's good. But they want to take all our passengers, and we're left with nothing. That's the way it is.
The horse and donkey carts are still in the majority. The horse and cart approaches Diondjuri, where there's a market day today. The passengers on the two trucks have also arrived in Diondjuri after the trip through the bushland. Diadje is relieved every time the transport goes smoothly. Although the villages are not far from each other, 20, 30 or 50 kilometers at the most, traveling through the wasteland is tiring even for seasoned lorry drivers. As soon as the lorries arrive, they are unloaded. The market only lasts for a few hours, so traders and customers want to make full use of them. The drivers would like a break, but Diadje and Siku have to inspect their lorries. They know that some things need repairing. Abdullah has also arrived in Diondjuri with his minibus. He helps the passengers get out. Happy customers are important to him. He hopes that his guests value his helpfulness and friendly manner and will travel with him again. The Diondjuri market is right on the river Niger. In the dry season, it can only be reached overland. Since there are no shops in most of the villages, people have to go to the markets. It's one of the few opportunities to do business and get the necessary supplies. Diadje and Seku's apprentices only fix things they have a knack for. Usually that's the small stuff. Screws that have got loose from vibration, or the bonnet that won't close. Since the lorries are old, something always needs fixing.
When you've been driving for a week, you need to check the entire car. We were supposed to rest today, but if we did, it wouldn't be good. We need to check the car. What happened on the trip? Where did something get torn off? What's come loose? We need to maintain it all the time.
On the last trip, there was a problem with the starter. Diadje suspects that there's an issue with the alternator. Together with his apprentice, he goes to a garage on the edge of the market to have it checked. Only larger villages have mechanics. If Diadje's lorry breaks down in the bush, he's out on his own. Diadje knows his lorry's kinks and glitches very well. Before he goes out on the dirt track again tomorrow, he wants to make sure that his truck is in a good state. The market finishes in the early evening. People are going home. The wind blowing the dust across the savannah has died down. Temperatures will cool off overnight, but only for a few hours. Diajé has taken some customers and their goods to a remote village before sunrise. He's traveling in the land of the Pearl, a tribe of cattle farmers who live as nomads all over Western Africa. The Pearl roam the savannah with their cattle, always looking for food for their animals. Except for animals and a few shepherds, Diajé meets no one. If his truck breaks down now, he will be alone with his apprentice, a helper, and a few passengers. There's no mobile reception for getting help. It's an eerie emptiness.
There are no mechanics, no garages, no spare parts depots along the way. If we break down, we need to fix it ourselves. Sometimes there are highwaymen. That can be scary. It's happened to me twice. They made people get off the car and had them lie down on the ground. They searched their pockets and took off. They let everyone go on. They didn't kill anyone. They didn't even shoot their guns. They just shoot the air, threaten you, take your money, and disappear again.
Today, bandits are not the problem. Diajé feels that something is wrong with the truck's chassis. He calls his apprentice to check what's wrong.
I'll get off. Move the prop shaft a bit. Oh, just shake it a bit and check it. Look at the back. Twist the prop shaft to and fro. In the center. Check the center. What's it like? Still working? If it's still okay, that's fine. We'll change the ball bearings when we get there. Do we continue? We're off.
Although his apprentice didn't find anything, Diajé wants to be on the safe side. He prefers to trust his instincts and experience instead of assuming that the ball bearings of the prop shaft will hold out.
Not 2 weeks go by without us having to weld something. These trucks are old. We weld something on every trip. You set off and something breaks and you need to change the spring.
Diajé and Sékou drive a legendary French vehicle, a Bélier lorry. Even though production stopped over 30 years ago, Sékou can't think of a better lorry for the desert and the savannah.
This Berlier is my fifth one. The fifth! We never sold any of them. We drive them until they break down. Only when they don't work anymore we'll buy a new one. The broken lorries are spare part stocks for this one. One of the broken ones is our pharmacy. If anything is missing here, we'll take it out of there and put it in here.
Back in town, Diajie wants to get replacement ball bearings for his prop shaft. Since there is no supplier for parts like that, he checks one of Siku's old Bélier lorries. It was left on the edge of a square. Diajie and his apprentice check if the ball bearings really are better than the ones in his truck. The men are skeptical. Diajie prefers to buy new ones. Diajie would never take his truck to the next bigger town where there is a spare parts depot. He would be gone for days and his losses would be enormous. That's why he asks Abdullahi.
The centre ball bearing's no good. We checked it and it's unusable. When you go to Jenny, can you get me one? No problem, I can bring you one. Will you make it to Messina? We'll make it to Messina. When I go to Jenna, I'll look for one for you.
Once a week is cleaning day. The lorries should shine in their old glory. It's a task for Diajie's apprentice.
We wash the engine so it can recover. When there is a lot of dirt on it, it gets hot. That's why we remove the oil and everything. Then it won't get so hot. And it can also happen that the engine is covered in dirt, and then a screw falls off somewhere and you can't even see it because of all the dirt. You see nothing.
The water from the river Niger inspires the men to clean especially thoroughly, and also because the whole process is a refreshment for them.
Oh man, that path is a disaster. Couldn't be any worse. Look, Usman, you start before sunrise and drive until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If there was a road with tarmac to Tenenku, we'd need no more than 2 hours. Yes, no more than 2 hours.
Before the trip can continue, a flat tire needs changing.
Are you done? Let's go. It's okay like this. Put it in. If the nuts don't go in easily, leave them. Your pettiness bothers me. You always keep a sharp eye on me. Do your job and let me do mine. You're making me nervous here.
It's late before the lorries can leave. For the drivers, it's not a problem. They can camp anywhere. But first, they have to take their passengers home. The advantage of driving at night is that the air cools down. Besides, the lorries can go faster. In the beam of their headlights, they can make out potholes and ditches more easily. Siku, Diajie and Abdullahi have made camp in the middle of the savannah with their colleagues. They feel at home here and enjoy their trucker lives. It's been a long day. They're hungry. It'll be a quick meal. The men talk about their vehicles, the state of the dirt tracks, and the weather. During the dry season, they are on the road day and night, even at the weekend. In those 7 months, they earned the money for the entire year. A few hours of sleep, and they start again. Early in the morning, it's already getting hot again. It hasn't rained in months. Lots of villages in the Savannah are far away from the important transport routes. For those people, it's a blessing to have a lorry come to them once a week. This way, they can shop at the faraway market. Sekou personally makes sure that every passenger pays up. The fare is equivalent to about 50 cents. Not a lot for the almost hour-long trip, but for people who have very little, it's a lot of money. Sekou will take anyone who wants to come along. There is no maximum number of people who can find space on the truck. The people wouldn't get to the market without the lorry. Sekou is proud of the fact that he is indispensable for the inhabitants of the region.
As far as the roads are concerned, my father built himself a reputation in his day. Then I came along and, thank God, was able to build up a reputation too. My father's car, where it didn't go, no market could develop, and I'm the same. Where I can't go, no other car can go. There won't be a market. I've really made my mark.
The donkey cart means that the market is not far now. For most people, market days are the only distraction in the everyday drabness. What people in other places take for granted, like shopping and selling the bare necessities, becomes a major exertion and fight for survival in Mali's savannah. People have to travel for an entire day to get a few tomatoes, fruit, some noodles, the occasional piece of meat, and a bar of soap.
The road means great discomfort for anyone on such a trip around here. The road's not good. The way people get on the truck, we're standing on our feet from one place to the next. It's great agony. Your legs don't get any relief. That's what makes it so hard.
Abdoulaye sets out to cross the Niger. At this time of year, the river is a mere stream compared with its size after the rainy season. In some places then, it gets so broad you can't see the other side. Abdoulaye wants to get the ball bearing for Diadje's lorry in Djenné. The town is 150 kilometers away. The Niger is like a border. On the other side of the river, the vegetation is lusher and the roads are paved. Driving a taxi is no dream job for Abdoulaye. He does it to feed his family.
I'm the oldest and have 3 younger brothers. They put all their hopes in me, Abdoulaye. If someone gets ill, I step up. If someone needs something, I step up. That's why I came to Tenenkul to work. I've never seen anyone from the town who goes to work in the village or bush. If they see me here driving in the bushland, I'll be poorly off.
The tarmacked roads of the bigger towns tempt people to drive faster, so accidents happen. A lorry loaded with tons of corn wanted to overtake another truck and spun out of control. Since there was little traffic at night, there wasn't a pileup. The drivers were lucky. They got off with minor injuries. Abdullah has reached Jenne with its marvelous clay mosque. In the town centre, right on the main square, he knows of a trader who stocks spare parts for Bélier lorries.
I need a ball bearing. What kind of ball bearing? One for our Bélier lorry. This is a ball bearing for the center. How much is it? Give me 5,000 for it. Oh, big brother, 5,000's a lot for that. Times are tough around here. I think 5,000's a good price. Let's not ramble on. Let's agree on 4,000 now. Oh, my dear man. Give it to me for 4,000. You know we don't make much money with our old vehicles.
On the other side of the Niger, in the Massina region, Sikou and his lorry arrive at the market. His passengers have survived the journey pretty shaken but unscathed. They have only a few hours to look around and do business before they go back. Most of them know each other, as they regularly take the lorry to the markets. But as they belong to different peoples who live in this area, they often don't speak the same language. Sekou is warmly welcomed by the village elders. They have known him since he was a boy and used to accompany his father here. Along the Niger, there are always markets. Big cattle markets are rather rare. From far away, as far as the Sahara and neighboring countries, Mauritania and Niger, come the cattle traders. Often they travel for days and weeks to sell their livestock. The chances to do business are good, because the Pearl like to buy cattle, sheep and goats to restock their herds and flocks. Sikou, Diadje and their apprentices and helpers are sitting in the shadow of the lorries, waiting for the market to end. They're resting before the next trip. They're a community which sticks together.
For example, in the rainy season, a car can get stuck. Then it's easier when several people travel together. Also, when one of them breaks down, many people can help out. When the car doesn't start, you can help each other out, and when something else breaks down, you get together and fix it together.
The radiator is leaking. On the way back from Jenne, Abdullah has problems with his minibus. A mechanic fixes the leak temporarily. If Abdullah wants to get to the agreed meeting point with Diadje in time, he has to hurry. Abdullah made it just in time, before Diajay sets out again.
Here, I got you this. Ah, that's it. That's exactly it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for trusting me.
Diajay doesn't have time to fit the ball bearing. He's running late already. He hopes that the prop shaft will last until the next stop. But first, the passengers need to take their places. The engine must be running, and none of the passengers must fall off the lorry. The dirt tracks have no beginning and no end. It's a never-ending circulation between the villages along the dirt tracks for many months. When the rainy season comes, they disappear until they reappear again, made by the drivers and their cars.
Oh no, it doesn't get boring. It's work. It's your livelihood. So you have to work. And everyone has their very own work. Understood? Day and night. It doesn't get boring. It's our work after all. And our work is this because we love it.
However well the drivers know the way, it will always be a trip into the unknown.
The Sichuan-Tibet Highway is the most important traffic route from China to the Himalayas. 2,200 kilometers across steep passes and deep valleys up to the roof of the world. The journey leads through remote villages and fascinating landscapes, but unforeseen dangers lure at every corner. At 5,000 meters altitude, the infinity of the sky seems as close as never before. At the end of the road of longing for truck drivers, travelers, and pilgrims. The Sichuan-Tibet Highway leads from Chengdu in the Sichuan province, situated in the southeast of China. It crosses the Himalayas to Tibet's capital city, Lhasa. Ren Taiping and his colleague Shun are checking the wheels and brakes of their truck. They have to bring cement to a place near the Tibetan border, about 800 kilometers away. They calculated 3 days for their trip. They take turns driving at frequent intervals because the ascent up the Himalayas takes full concentration.
The road section between Tuanyuan and the Erlang Mountains is very difficult to drive because of the many roadworks. Landslides cause road accidents time and time again. The road conditions are a disaster, especially in heavy rain.
Through steep valleys, the road ascends higher and higher. Because there was a lot of rain, whole mountain slopes start moving. The road needs repairing all the time. Again and again, vehicles crash and fall into the deep canyons.
Nearly all drivers we meet are Tibetans. They're bad drivers. If we encounter them on the road, it's better to let them pass. Only yesterday, further down the road, the stubborn behavior of two drivers caused deaths.
The ascent to the first pass is especially dangerous, since it's hardly paved at all. Ren Taiping prefers to let his more experienced colleague Shun do the driving. The road winds itself ever higher through a subtropical mountain jungle. The clouds floating from the Pacific Ocean to the Himalayas cause heavy rains here.
Traffic is bad here because of only single-lane traffic on account of the roadworks. Look, the whole street leading up here is only one single traffic jam. You have to be very careful.
Shortly before the pass, once again a landslide blocks the road. Everyone has to be prepared for many hours of waiting time. The first stage of the Sichuan-Tibet highway leads from Sichuan's capital city Chengdu across the foothills of the Himalayas to Kangding. The first ascent to the Erlang mountain is one of the most dangerous stages of the whole route. A farmer woman is logging bamboo in the underbrush above the street. Gao Kaisi does not even let heavy rain keep her from working.
What do we use the bamboo for? We use it to build a protective cover. Our old temple is being demolished. Now our Buddha needs a new provisional roof.
Gao Kaisi and some of the farmers from the close-by village want to finish building the makeshift temple on the slope above the highly frequented road. It's supposed to safeguard not only the villagers, but also passing travelers against accidents. People here are used to working in the rain. The sun hardly ever shines in this foggy region.
This is Buddha Guanyin, and here we have the patron of the street. Over there is General Bai, and this is Bai Ma with his white horse.
To ask for protection from up above is very common in this area, maybe because there are dangers everywhere. Just a few years ago, tens of thousands of people died at a disastrous earthquake which devastated this area in Sichuan.
Soon we will build a new temple. Now is the peak harvest time for the rice, so we have no time at all. We'll only have time to build the permanent temple after everything has been harvested.
The temple is inaugurated with small fireworks. Beware of falling rocks, it says a few kilometers further on. The rain has destabilized the slope. The climbers are trying to loosen branches and debris to prevent the worst. Sometimes the road patrol manages to alleviate dangerous sights, but most of the time they arrive too late. Shu Wengxing is one of the thousands of cyclists who try to surmount the passes of the Sichuan Tibet highway between spring and fall.
I feel free when I'm on the road. I can cycle fast or slow, whichever I want. I meet people on the way and make friends. We cyclists are like-minded. Everyone is on vacation. I'm so happy.
We're cycling to Lhasa. It'll take us 3 to 4 weeks to get there. In between, we'll rest for 2 or 3 days.
Through rain and fog, even in snow and ice, the cyclists struggle for days across 4,000 to 5,000 meter high passes to reach their destination, Lhasa. Because of the enormous differences in altitude, the endlessly long passages and the many dangers, the Sichuan-Tibet highway is a sort of baptism of fire for many members of the new Chinese middle class. Ren Taiping and his colleague have left the traffic jam behind. Finally, they can move on.
If a car breaks down and blocks the road, the traffic jam lasts for at least half a day.
Dangerous situations occur very often. One has to be very careful. But most drivers are aware of the dangers.
Not only landslides, falling rocks, or unpaved roads are challenging. The greatest danger arises from drivers who risk too much. A poultry truck has fallen over. Hundreds of chickens have died.
A car approached me on my lane. I came from below and had to yield quickly.
The driver's wife is trying to save what can be saved. It has taken the family a whole year to rear the chickens. Now the family's existence is at stake. The route leads ever higher up in the Himalayas. Behind the first 4,000-meter pass, Ren Taiping and his colleagues suffered damage too. The driver's door is damaged, but they are not even halfway there.
My colleague, Mr. Xun, stopped to replenish the water when a truck came towards us. We shouted and waved at him to make him stop, but he didn't see us in time and crashed into the open door. That's how it got broken.
Ren Taiping suspects this unnecessary accident will cost him at least half a day, because normally it takes the police a few hours to arrive at the scene. The other driver does not accept the blame. so the police will have to file a report. Further down in the valley, the cyclists stop off at a hostel before darkness sets in. Zhu Wengxing has also completed his daily leg. The increasing bicycle tourism is a welcome line of business for the villagers. A one-night stay costs €5 per person. That's affordable, even by Chinese standards. The cyclists arrive from all across China. The highway on top of the world is en vogue. But whoever cycles here must be prepared for all kinds of weather.
The road was bumpy and full of potholes and totally wet. Yes, I got wet too. It's very slippery, especially downhill. The overtaking cars splash dirt in my face. That's a real problem. If a truck approaches you, you have to stop. Otherwise, no one can pass. I must be careful because the truck would hardly notice if it ran over me.
It's still raining the next morning. The villagers don't seem to mind. Here at 2,000 meters above sea level, the people are used to this moist and damp weather. Things at the hostel are starting to stir too. Shortly before 10 a.m., later than usual, Zhu Wengxing sets off on his trip again. Ren Taiping and his colleague are back on the road as well. They waited 5 hours for the police to arrive. They flattened the driver's door and tied it to the truck as best as they could. The Sichuan-Tibet highway winds itself ever higher. The next pass is 4,500 meters high. The truckers stay on the inner lane as much as they can because of the broken door and the dust. Up here, the air is noticeably thinner, and it has become colder. The temperatures now lie at barely above 0 degrees.
It is so tough to drive, and the next passage will be uncomfortable too. We try to stay close to the mountain with our broken door, which means that sometimes we're driving on the wrong side of the road. This can be dangerous, especially if big vehicles are approaching.
From the city of Kangding, the road leads across various passes to Leang near the Tibetan border. Close by the road at nearly 5,000 meters, the Tibetan monastery Gaoe Shan. About 2,000 meters further down, the climate becomes mild again. This is the Tibetan part of Sichuan, easily recognizable by the splendid Tibetan houses. The family Sang belongs to the Kampa people. They are building a new house for their son. The old one stood too close to the road and was demolished. Luo Sang is 24 years old. The house is supposed to be ready when he gets married.
When they expanded the Sichuan-Tibet highway a little while ago, our house was affected as well. Even though we weren't happy with the compensation payment, we're now building a new house, a bit further away from the street now. Everybody working here is related to me. We ourselves dug up the stones and the clay and brought it here from far away.
It will take 3 months to build the house. Life for the Kampa people has its own rhythm, but the highway is a foreboding of changing times. Every day, new faces appear. Who are these strangers that struggle to climb up here? What do they want here? The locals ask themselves. It won't take long before the Chinese bustle will change life up here too. Zhang Yong drinks up his energy drink before hitting the road again. He's actually always in a hurry. He is expected to pick up tourists from Lhasa for a tour across the Himalayas. He aims to arrive within 5 days, but Lhasa is not only 1,700 kilometers away. He also has to overcome a total of 25,000 meters in altitude, downhill and uphill. Zhang Yong always drives as fast as the road allows, sometimes even faster. He is 25 years young, quick to react, and ambitious. The tour is not only a job for him, but also a challenge.
Driving uphill, it's sometimes really difficult to overtake the others. For example, if there's a traffic jam, overtaking can get very dangerous. That means I won't be able to meet my schedule. There are days when I only manage to drive 200 kilometers because of all the time I'm losing.
Zhang Yong just barely missed getting involved in this crash.
The brakes failed. Didn't work anymore. I went downhill and the truck went faster and faster. I had to steer into the ditch or else we would have come off the road.
The driver realizes immediately the truck is only good enough for its spare parts. Maybe the engine and the gearbox still work, but the whole right-hand side is a pile of junk. At least the load, containing construction material, isn't damaged. He wants to be able to give a detailed account of the damage when he calls his boss. After the first shock, the driver reacts surprisingly relaxed and cool.
The danger is always greatest going downhill, when the brakes are strained. I was petrified when I hit the brakes and absolutely nothing happened.
To the left, there were a couple of small cars approaching. He would have definitely run into them if he hadn't driven into the mountain. There would have been casualties. He would have pushed the two little cars down the slope, and then there would have been another traffic jam. He made the right decision.
Ren Taiping and his colleague have now been on the road for 3 days. They want to arrive at their destination Litang tomorrow morning. Another problem arises.
That doesn't sound good. I had a funny feeling right at the beginning of our trip. I'll check the cooling system of the brakes.
Is the brake cooling blocked?
The valve is shut. The cooling is blocked.
That's not good. The cooling shouldn't be blocked. It's very dangerous if the cooling system for the brakes fails and you're going downhill. And the brakes will fail and you have a real big problem. You either drive against the buffer walls, into the ditch, or you go down the slope. Or you cause a bad accident. Something that frequently happens here.
At 4,000 meters altitude, right next to the road, a Tibetan family of nomads are tending their flock of yaks. Zuoma, her husband and the 2 sons live off the milk, the furs, and the meat of the animals. They own 70 yaks. Zu's eldest son, Dawa, is 13 years old. It took him ages to accustom his favorite yak to be ridden. Now he is proud that the animal lets him sit on its back.
I tend to the yaks and call them if they stroll off too far. After milking them, I bring them to the pasture and bring them back in the afternoon.
Dawa wants to become a cowboy, own a horse, and ride through the prairie. Soon the family will leave the summer pasture and move on to the village below.
Our village has a school, but I don't go there anymore. I left 2 or 3 years ago. Yes, I miss school.
Because the first snow has already fallen, his dad has borrowed a truck to transport the tents and yaks down to the village. Tomorrow they will start moving, but today the yaks are allowed to graze one last time.
I don't have much to say. Just tell them what you do every day. I herd yaks every day.
Zuma has milked about 30 liters of milk today. It's their most important income. In order to produce yak butter, she heats up the milk a little bit. She sells the butter to a salesman who comes around every day, 5 kilos each day. They live off it.
Without this machine, we wouldn't have butter. The whey comes in here and the butter over there.
The fact that their pastures lie directly at the road makes life simpler for the family. It's easier to sell the butter, and the transport of the tents and the herd the next day will take place much faster. Shortly before the next pass, a car from Shanghai has broken down on the mountain road. Xu Ting has a problem with her clutch.
I can't do this when people are watching me.
Xu Ting still needs practice starting the car at the foot of a hill. It's her first time in the mountains. She came to conquer the Himalayas all on her own, all the way from Shanghai.
I just want to drive to Tibet. I've been wanting to go there for 3 years now, but there were too many things that kept me from doing so. Now the time has come. I've done some research and have been preparing for this trip for the past 3 years. I want to see Tibet with my own eyes, and it should be possible even with such a small car.
Xu Ting has already driven 2,500 kilometers, 500 in the mountains. Because her car is lightweight and has a lot of chassis clearance, she masters even difficult passages. Sometimes impatient fellow drivers give Xu Ting a harder time than the road conditions.
Go back. Why do you keep going ahead? You're blocking the road.
Can't the truck get past?
Whenever the drivers encounter traffic jams at roadworks, they get nervous. Ren Taiping and his colleague have almost reached their destination. Between them and Litang remains only a last ascent. They arrive a day too late because of the accident and the many traffic jams. Still, they are in a good mood because up here, the road is free of potholes.
There used to be lots of thieves here. I never used to dare driving here at night. And in the old days, it was impossible to make rapid progress. You used to have to drive much more carefully than today.
Ren Taiping particularly enjoys this part of the journey, especially if the sun is shining. The lofty beauty of the landscape at 4,500 meters altitude gives him a feeling of freedom. They arrive at Litang in the afternoon. It's one of the highest cities of the world, situated at 4,000 meters altitude on a high plateau. One of the most famous Tibetan Buddhist monasteries is in Litang. Ren Taiping and his colleague have now delivered the cement. Not only construction material, but also most of the food for the inhabitants of Litang comes from the lowlands. They have mastered this adventurous trip once again. They won't rest for long at this restaurant. Already in the afternoon, they'll be heading back home. The monastery of Leang was built in the 16th century. The 3rd and 10th Dalai were educated here. Even today, the monastery is one of the most important schools of Tibetan Buddhism. More than 1,000 monks live behind these ancient walls. The 10-meter-high statue of Buddha on the inside is famous as well. Splendid ornaments bear witness to the ingenuity of Tibetan artisanship. Zhang Yong has been on the road for 3 days now. He is happy about the improvement of the road conditions up here in the mountains. The Sichuan-Tibet highway runs from Leang at the Tibetan border across eastern Tibet all the way to Lhasa. At the Tibetan border, Zhang Yong crosses the legendary Yangtze River, which enters the Pacific Ocean near Shanghai. A bit further west, the road follows the valley of the River Mekong, which sometimes carves 2 kilometers deep into the mountains. Finally, it reaches the 72 turns, which lead down to the River Saluan.
It's not easy driving down these serpentines. The bends are extremely narrow. If you drive too fast, the car might roll over. And you always have to keep an eye on the approaching traffic in the curves. If a big truck shows up, you have to wait in front of the curve. That's the only way to pass. This is a good car, but you shouldn't drive it too fast. An SUV is big and high, but that means it can easily overturn.
In spite of its high center of gravity, Zhang Yong pushes the vehicle to its limits. Next to the road, 3 young Tibetans are sorting pieces of aluminum. They are a kind of vanguard of civilization. Hu Kai is in charge of the brigade. He has invested all his money in 5 mules in order to be able to offer his services to the electricity board. He wants to help put up power poles until he has made enough money to fulfill his dream of buying his own car. One day, he wants to be a taxi driver.
At the moment, we don't have any power supply lines. There's no electricity. Depending on the whereabouts, it'll take up different amounts of time. In this sector, it'll take another month.
Hu Kai is only responsible for this area next to the road. Higher up, there is another brigade putting up the power poles to also supply this Tibetan region with electricity.
The stronger mules can carry 400 to 450 kilos. This one here, only 250. We have to be careful. If the parts fall on the mule's legs, we have a big problem.
Highly focused, Zhang Yong heads west. He enjoys being able to drive as fast as he wants to in this remote area. These bikers are also heading towards Lhasa. They are from the Guangdong province and have been on the road for 26 days already and driven 4,000 kilometers. Huang Xingtao has come up with the plan.
I'm 66 years old. He's 62 and this gentleman here is 61. We're all retired. I'd already planned to drive to Tibet on a motorcycle for 8 years, but it never happened. I did go to Lhasa with a group of tourists, but to find people to go there on a motorbike tour isn't easy at all. But now, finally, my dream comes true.
Lhasa holds a mysterious attraction for many people. Some are searching for freedom and adventure on their trip across the mountains, while others have religious and spiritual reasons to explore the heart of Tibet. For these Tibetan travelers, the Sichuan Tibet Highway is a pilgrim trail.
We're going to Lhasa, to the prayer mills. We've been traveling for a month now. We carry all we need, our food too. Tsampa.
They eat pure barley flour without additives, their only sustenance for many weeks. The pilgrim trail leads them on, uphill and downhill through ice and snow. Only those prepared to suffer hardships will endure. For the professional driver Zhang Yong, the Sichuan Tibet Highway is just part of his job. He doesn't care much for the discovery of slowness. The earlier he arrives, the more content he is. But shortly before reaching Lhasa, he encounters a traffic jam for the first time in days.
There are various hazards on the trip. Landslides, deep snow in the high mountains, slippery and icy streets. It may be difficult for someone who never drove here before. For me, it's no problem to drive down this road. I know it well.
Zhang Yong has reached his destination, Lhasa. The pilgrims also arrive after their long journey at the Potala Palace, the Dalai Lama's residence for centuries. They believe that by spinning the prayer mills, they can remove the harm of all living creatures and dissolve bad karma. Now, at the end of the Sichuan Tibet Highway, everyone has fulfilled their goal. Manitoba, Canada. Temperatures go down to below -50 Celsius, one of the most inhospitable regions of the Earth. As soon as the swamps and marshes are frozen, the ice road season begins. It's the only period of time in which the inhabitants of these isolated areas can be supplied with goods. It's a short period of time. Everything that people need for the course of the whole year must be brought there within 2 to 3 months. The problem is, no one knows for exactly how long the deep frozen swamps and lakes will be passable for the 40-ton trucks. Every single trip to the north is a risky ride.
Go ahead a little bit.
Hot roads, the Canadian ice roads.
We're gonna offer a little bit of tobacco to the smudge here. We're gonna put some of that tobacco in our pipe. We're offering this pipe as a way of our acknowledging that you're gonna have a safe trip. I want you to
Scott Campbell's ancestors belonged to the First Nation, the country's native people. He's proud to be one of them.
Pray out loud for those things that you want on this journey. And then after that, you and I will smoke that pipe. Well, you got lots of hair anyway. Yeah.
Ahead of Scott lies a dangerous trip for which he wants to prepare himself spiritually.
I pray to my family that they are kept safe when I'm on my long journey, and to be able to come back home safe.
Scott and Chief Calvin conjure up the mystic white buffalo woman, a powerful being and patron of the North American natives. Scott has promised a friend to transport an urgently needed snowmobile across the ice roads up north. With the snowmobile on the back of his truck, he sets off on a long, lonely trip. The white buffalo woman is supposed to accompany and watch over him.
Spirituality is connected to traditions and customs and to family. And I find that every religion or race has their own beliefs. Native people tend to be very spiritual, very tied to the land. And to me, in my heart, if you don't know where you come from, it's sometimes hard to find direction in life and find out where you're going.
His journey begins in the heart of Canada, not far from the border to the USA. Winnipeg, the capital of the province of Manitoba. From here, the route leads almost 1,300 kilometers further north to a little community called God's Lake. Last warnings on the way into wilderness. In wintertime, God's Lake, like many other villages, can only be supplied via the ice roads. The transportation of goods is a tough business. Most transports are organized by the state and are contracted out amongst the road haulers. It's a question of money and speed. Both man and material are extremely under stress.
Anyway, main part.
Every truck that manages to return safely is put to the acid test before being sent out back into the cold. Hugh Rowland earned his money already at the age of 15 as a construction worker, building the ice roads. After 30 years in the business, his colleagues call him Polar Bear.
I mean, people used to get up there and the truck would break down. And if your truck broke down, in 15 minutes you didn't get it going, you were stranded there. I've had guys freeze to death, freeze their feet, freeze their hands. And you can't leave your truck because of the wild animals. You get eaten by polar bears, wolves, so you have to stay with the truck, and that's how people freeze to death. I mean, it's 60 below up there. It's not a nice place to be with no heat.
Vlad Pescod arrived in Canada as a young man with $42 in his pocket. Today, he owns a freight forwarding business. As soon as the first snow falls, he sits on the driver's seat of his 40-ton truck again.
This is my baby, you know. I sleep truck, I eat truck, I breathe truck. I mean, if something happens to my truck, it's devastating. It can cost me my life. So everything's got to be tip-top. That's why I'm checking every single bolt, every single nut from bumper to bumper. Everything's got to be tip-top. If it's not, it can break down up there. There is no way to pull over and fix something. It's minus 40, you know, you freeze to death in half an hour.
Departure at dawn. It's minus 30 Celsius. You and Vlad have to go to God's Lake too. Their load, school material and medical goods for the medical clinic. Ahead of them lies several 18-hour days and the constant risk of getting stuck on the road in these icy temperatures. In the beginning, it's only straight ahead on Highway number 6, heading north. A 1,000 kilometers from Winnipeg to the little village of Norway House, the first leg of the trip.
Well, when I was a kid, you know, I wanted to be an astronaut or a president. Actually, I wanted to be a pilot, but my father, he drove the truck his whole life. So I knew when I was young that that's gonna be my future too. I was always interested in the truck, and I got diesel underneath my fingerprints when I was really young, and I guess, you know, once you get a little bit of diesel in your blood, it's really hard to get rid of it.
As soon as the road patrol releases the ice roads, the ice truckers are on the road. Every tour means cash.
When I first started it, it was real adventurous and it paid good. And of course, you know, I raised my whole family driving the ice roads and everything, so I just kept doing it. Now I'm just passionate about it. I can't wait to do it every year. I can't wait for the ice to come in, and I get up there and I get to drive them, and I wait for it every year. I love the ice roads. It gets in your blood, you just keep doing it.
The loneliness of the Northern Hemisphere begins just a few kilometers outside the city of Winnipeg. Only very rarely do you meet people here. Jim Niedermeyer is one of them. He grew up here. In the summer, he works as a farmer and grows rice up here in northern Canada. During the long winter months, he works as an artist. He used to manufacture mainly furniture. By now, he sees more in wood than simply building material.
You have to see what you're going to do in the wood. The wood has to have some kind of spirit in it that you have to see it. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You start up the saw and you just see what happens. You'll see it pretty quick. You'll know that you could see something in there. You know, there's an eagle, and it's just, you know, the chainsaw is just removing wood. That's all it's doing, but this thing is underneath it. and it's a tool just for removing that wood and exposing that carving.
Along the ice road, people know Jim Niedermeyer. The truckers regard his sculptures as symbols of their home country.
Well, we have a lot of wood out here, a lot of animals. To me, it's got to be part of Manitoba. You know, it's just showing the creatures that are running out in the forest here. I try to bring them back to life in wood. That's my goal, is to bring them to life.
In the meantime, Scott has reached the first frozen lakes. The smooth surface is a temptation for speeding. 100 kilometers an hour, like on a highway.
Makes you worry sometimes because as you're going across, you can hear the ice cracking. It actually sounds like thunder underneath your vehicle. But as long as you stay in the middle and you're safe and you do the right speed, everything's all good.
Where Scott is driving right now is a lake in the summer. The ice roads exist only in wintertime. The through route to northern Manitoba lasts for a few weeks only, and no one knows for exactly how long. Each year in Manitoba alone, more than 2,000 kilometers of ice roads are built through the wilderness. But even in these Arctic temperatures, you can't rely on the great rivers freezing over. Only permanent bridges can help. In the villages of northern Manitoba live mostly members of the First Nation, the Indigenous inhabitants of Canada. The state's way of treating them is a dark chapter of Canadian history.
Canadian government has just recently started to deal with some of these things that went on decades ago, but the after effects of the cultural genocide, forced assimilation are seen not only in the big cities but some of the small communities and reservations throughout Manitoba. When you take a person and you rip out their culture and their traditions and you force them to do someone else's that is totally alien to them, they lose who they are. They lose their identity.
The people living in the reservations are completely dependent upon state aid and upon the transportation of goods on the ice roads. Scott visits old friends and relatives on each of his tours to the north.
Hi, how you guys been?
He has met up with Lee Codd to go ice fishing. Lee is a Pine Creek Indian and, like Scott, fights for the remembrance of past injustices.
What they did is, when your kid was 5 years old, they would come here, take all the kids, all the children, and then they'll take them to residential schools, and then they'd either Catholic, Presbyterian, I don't know, some kind of denomination, Christian, and they turned them out to be Christianized them and believe in something that they weren't. You couldn't speak our language, and you weren't allowed to talk to your family members, your siblings, and there was a lot of crying.
Lee is trying to make the First Nation members more aware of their traditional way of life. It starts with very practical things.
We would never have gloves like this. We'd have leather mitts, you know, that hides. Caribou hide has that fiber, has a hole in it for a good insulation that runs around this territory here.
Lee wants to connect traditional ways of life with modern life. For example, an ice drill can actually be quite helpful if the ice is thicker than a meter. This balance between the past and modern age is not at all easy for many First Nation members. Ice fishing used to be an ordinary part of self-sufficient life for the people up north. Today, it's more or less a way to pass the time. Many First Nation members have drug and alcohol problems. Lee himself had a hard time too. Now he helps young people and is engaged in revitalizing the traditions of the ancestors. It has helped him to get over his own problems as well.
No bites. I think all the fish are in school.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you and Vlad are still heading up north.
Oh, I know that guy. Well, I just passed you. I'm going up north, going to St. Therese. How's the road?
They're not too bad. Once you get up to about 220 there, before you hit Moron Hill, you're going to have to slap your chains on. It's pretty slick up there.
So basically same old, eh?
Same, yeah. Looks pretty good out there.
It's never any warmer than minus 25. Like last year, we had 8 weeks of minus 60 below. There wasn't one day that was below minus 40. So I mean, you get up there, metal breaks at minus 40, breaks right in half. And then you're screwed. You're not getting out of there. So you make sure you got a sleeping bag that's good for minus 40. So I mean, you got to be prepared.
Scott has relatives living alongside the ice road. He wants to stay the night with them, but he isn't going to make it before darkness sets in. The rare trail marks on the frozen lakes are hard to find. They're just simple branches at irregular intervals. And then the snowfall begins. Scott can only hope it's not one of those infamous snowstorms. A blizzard would destroy all trail marks for good, and the snow masses would make it impossible to continue driving. A whiteout is lurking. The white wall, which races across the open landscape as a snowstorm. The inferno of storm and snow makes all orientation impossible.
The best thing to do in a whiteout if you're lost is just stay where you are. A lot of times people will spend hours and hours just walking in circles to the point of exhaustion, and then that's it.
Fortunately, the storm weakens, so Scott can drive on. He wants to make up for lost time. That's when it happens. In a short moment of distraction, he starts to slide and gets stuck. But he's fortunate in his bad luck. Scott is already within radio distance of the next village. Help arrives after a few minutes. Scott's truck is badly stuck in the snow. The second vehicle can't get any grip on the icy track. Finally, the men try to alternately push and pull Scott's truck out of the deep snow. Done. And since everyone knows each other out here, a place to sleep is easy to find. Vlad and you have almost reached their destination for the day. 800 kilometers north of Winnipeg, they cross the Nelson River on the concrete dam of a hydroelectric power plant. Worldwide, Canada is one of the major producers of hydro-powered electricity. This is how the province of Manitoba produces more than 90% of its energy. The truckers drive across the last lake of the day in walking pace. Standing still would be potentially lethal because of dangerous cracks in the ice that might occur. Top speed, 5 kilometers an hour. There is air between the ice and the water surface. The weight of the passing truck presses the ice down a bit. It freezes underneath, so the cracks are patched. In spite of all the experience, every single crossing of the ice remains a risky business. Vlad and Yu arrive late at their place for the night along the ice road. They have everything they need for the night inside their trucks.
How did we today? How did we do today?
Well, I think we did pretty fair. She's a pretty decent time getting up here to the ice roads. Yeah, I'm good. I got my coloring book all done, so I'm sack her down for the night.
What time are you getting up tomorrow morning?
We may as well get up around 6 and hit her, eh?
Yeah, that gives me my 13 hours. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, you need all the beauty sleep you can get.
Yeah, you passed on that a long time ago. There is no return for you.
I said I'm too ugly to be on TV. Just show me the money.
Alrighty, man. I'll see you in 6.
Hey, good night.
Okay, good night, man.
The second leg stretches from Norway House to God's Lake, almost 300 kilometers across snow, ice, and dangerously hilly terrain. The next day. In the summer, you'd find swamps and lakes, impenetrable moorlands. Neither boat nor truck could pass here. The roads across snow and ice can only be built in wintertime and if it's cold enough.
One of the things they do if they find out the ice isn't thick enough is they'll send crews out here with big drills that they pull behind a vehicle, and they'll drill a hole in the ice, and as the auger spins through the ice and it gets into the water, it'll pull water up. It's called flooding the ice, so they can actually add inches to the top of the ice to make it thick and safe enough.
The ice must be at least 1.2 meters thick in order for the 18-wheeler to cross the ice safely. Vlad and Yu start their journey early too. If all goes well, they'll make the last 300 kilometers to God's Lake before darkness sets in. They are a well-rehearsed team and have gone through a lot together.
If I go with Hugh on a trip, I feel much more confident. Hugh is a great partner to be on these roads. Every single trip something happens. I know I can rely on that guy behind me because he knows a lot.
Well, me and Vlad, we're business partners and good friends, like best friends. So we get along real good, and when we travel together, there ain't nothing we can't pull off. I mean, we know we ain't gonna get stuck in the bush anywhere, and we know we're gonna get anything done that needs to be done. So Me and him travel real well together. We know each other pretty far.
It's the beginning of March. The roads are still in good shape considering the time of year. It may get warmer any day. Then the roads will turn into impassable swamps. Vlad and Yu are in a hurry. They want to drive as many truckloads as possible up north this season.
Come on, boys.
The ice roads have only existed for the last 50 years. There used to be no vehicles up here in the north. It was the time of the sledge dogs. For Dwayne Kabaluk, a construction engineer along the ice road, the dogs are just a hobby. His dogs are Alaskan Malamutes, famous for their strength and endurance. They can manage up to 100 kilometers without taking a rest.
Up in the north, well, basically, they moved around from place to place wherever the food was, and they brought their families and all their belongings with them, and that's what they used the dogs for. And your dogs back then were basically your home pets, treated, well, just like family. And in summer months when they were low on food, your dogs were basically let loose and they fend on their own. That's why the dogs still have a bit of prey instinct to them compared to most dogs.
The dogs are not only persevering and tough, they are also capable of defending the freight and their owner against polar bears. Dwayne practices with his dogs almost every day along the ice roads. He hopes next year they will be ready for their first race. Vlad and Yu must stop. In spite of all the hurry, it's safety first. There is one kind of accident on the ice roads the truckers are especially afraid of: a jackknife. That's what it's called when the heavy trailer and the truck twist and wedge together. This must be prevented by all means.
Now, we got about 30 clicks of rough road in front of us, and we're gonna need some added traction because it's really hilly. And with loaded trailers like that, I don't want to end up in a ditch or upside down. So putting up chains so I can basically make those hills up there. Well, if I don't have the chains, best case scenario is I just get stuck until somebody pulls me up. Worst case scenario, I start sliding backwards, jackknife, and basically ended up in a ditch. Truck, trailer, load, you know, we're talking about $300,000 in damages, so I don't want to end up like that. That's why I'm putting all those chains.
The ride through the hilly terrain is an act of balance. If you drive too slowly, you lose the momentum and risk sliding backwards. But if you go too fast, you end up in the ditch and block the road.
What's blocking the road, the truck or the trailer? Everything. Truck's right in the middle. Middle of the Vlad will take you down there.
One of Vlad and Yu's colleagues has landed in the ditch and must detach the truck now to clear the way. Without the weight of the trailer, the truck is hardly able to maneuver anymore. There's not much Vlad and Yu can do here, but help is on its way. Inch by inch, The fully loaded trucks work their way past the damaged truck. It's only later they learn that their colleague had to wait for 2 days before heavy machinery helped him out of his misery.
Anything you learn on a highway, throw it out the window. I mean, basically you can't hit your brakes on the ice. You've got hills up there and everything. You hit the brakes, your load is going by you. If you're gonna hit the brakes, you gotta use your trailer brakes. No tractor brakes at all, and you gotta have a big set of nuts.
Vlad and you want to make up for lost time and speed up. But a lack of attention for just a single moment is enough to cause danger on these icy roads.
How far are you? It looks like I went too fast and I got into the ditch. Might need to pull.
Oh yeah, I see you now. There we go.
A piece of ice was sufficient to derail Vlad's truck. And once a truck starts sliding, there's hardly any stopping it.
Go ahead a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna lock everything I got.
Doug just put her in gear and fucking step on the gas.
Let's try slow if you can, then just start bumping, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
A towing maneuver with 500 horsepower. They got off lightly though, just a slight damage to the bumper.
Yeah, you just touched her in there sideways. That'll be good. Let's rock and roll.
Often enough, the two have experienced that they couldn't continue their journey. They had to hold out for days in their trucks until help arrived from Winnipeg. Many a driver has gone crazy in the loneliness of the north. Last year, a colleague had to be saved by a helicopter. It's truly a dangerous job, but 30,000 people in Manitoba depend on the transportation of goods on the ice roads. For the last part of the trip to God's Lake, the trucks need snow chains. Scott and his light pickup truck are almost there. The snowmobile in the back is still undamaged. The village God's Lake, with its 2,000 inhabitants, lies at the shore of the lake. In summertime, one of the best fishing grounds in Canada. Here, a highlight is awaiting the drivers after a long trip, Healy's Lodge. It's the only comfortable lodging in an area of many hundreds of kilometers. Not only the breakfast is legendary. The homely sitting room is a reminder of great hunting and fishing adventures. For decades, owner Goldie Healy has been making sure the travelers feel at home here.
Morning, Goldie.
Oh, good morning, Nice to see you too. You made it.
Yeah, it was a long trip, so it's almost 26 hours, but we made it.
Yeah, the road is better this year than most years because we haven't had any melt.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty cold.
It's good though because the road's nice and tight. It was minus 51 this morning, so everything's frozen pretty good. So made for some good going.
Yes, but I'm going to let you have your coffee.
At Goldie's, practical information as well as tales of the truckers' greatest deeds are exchanged.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Before Scott delivers his freight to a place a few kilometers outside the village, he uses the opportunity to go out on the lake. His old friend Brian, who still goes fishing in the traditional way even in wintertime, has to bring his nets in and has asked Scott for help. Brian has put out the nets between two ice holes a few days ago.
If you're doing it the old way with the picks and the chisel, you got to dig a 3-foot wide hole, probably 3-4 feet of ice, and that's a lot of work. But you do what you got to do in the north. So.
Basic supplies for the locals comes via the ice roads. But a diverse diet, especially one containing fresh vitamins, can only be achieved by hunting and fishing. Brian fishes mostly for his own needs. He sells the surplus fish in the village.
Oh, it's a nice one.
Only a few moments after they come out of the water, the fish are already deep frozen, ready to be taken home. An exceptionally yummy dish if fried in the pan.
I used to do a lot of hunting and fishing with some of my family and that, and to be back out in the community of God's Lake now to help some of my friends now, it felt really good, doing things the way they used to do things and knowing that whatever I put into my day with them was going to help his family out. So it was good. It was worth it. I really enjoyed it.
Vlad and Yu are still at work, but they too have almost arrived at God's Lake. A few kilometers from their destination, the last great crossing of the lake is waiting for them. A safety distance of 500 meters and walking pace are obligatory.
Because when you come onto the ice, it deflects the ice and makes a wave under you. So all the time you're going across that ice, you're actually deflected, and you've got a big wave pushing in front of you. So now he's got a wave in front of him, and I got a wave in front of me. You don't want my wave to catch up to him, because the wave will hit his back tires, break the ice out, and he'll sink. You got to go slow, steady and slow, respect the ice at all times. Go slow going on, go slow coming off, and keep your spacing between the trucks. Because you're not only going to kill yourself, you're going to kill somebody else if you don't respect the ice.
Even after 30 years, the men still hold a great respect for the ice. It's their life insurance on the ice roads. After 2 days of driving, Vlad and Yu do not want to lose more time. As soon as they are within radio range, they try to reach their contacts in God's Lake.
Hey Hugh, tell me one more time what's loaded first and what's loaded second.
Okay, the health unit is at the back, and the admin is at the front.
You're going to band office, that's the first load. They're going to unload you, and Ella from Health Authority is going to meet you at the band office and drag you over to the complex and unload the second aisle.
Okay, so is somebody going to marshal us from the corner up here?
Yeah, Ella is taking care of it.
Okay, come on.
Unloading is manual labor. It takes time, especially if you arrive at the wrong time. Today, they are lucky. The helpers arrive quickly and they make good progress. While 40 tons of load are stored box after box, the driver's thoughts are already one step ahead.
I mean, the whole season, you know, it's like roller coaster. It's like a long-lasting marathon. You know, you load and you start thinking about the trip. When you get there, you start talking about unloading. When you unload, you start thinking about how you're gonna get back. And when you get back, you're thinking about the next load.
Because that's the name of the game. You got to get all these loads up here before the ice melts. And you've seen it today. It got down to only -6. That's too warm for these roads. If that happens for a whole week, we're finished already. The biggest thing I'm looking forward to is getting my paperwork signed and getting back for my next trip.
Scott, too, has arrived at his destination.
Hey, bud, it's me, Scott. I just made it in.
Oh, glad to hear, buddy. How was the trip?
It was good. It was good. It was a long trip, but I got here, I got the sled on the back. Everything's all fixed up.
Right on, yeah. I was beginning to get a little worried. I might have some trouble.
No, it was a good trip. I'll see you shortly.
Right on, buddy. I'll be waiting.
It was a long trip, but I'm glad it's over. It's almost 30 hours on the road, and the roads are pretty decent. But it's only half over now. I gotta unload this and turn around, and then I gotta head back.
In delivering the snowmobile, Scott has completed his mission. Just like you and Vlad, he will now head back as soon as possible. Back across Canada's ice roads, for as long as the ice still carries.